What if the delay you're facing right now, the unanswered dua, the job you didn't get, the relationship that didn't work, the dream that feels so far away, what if all of it wasn't a rejection from Allah, but rather His way of preparing something far greater than you can imagine? What if every and not yet is actually His mercy protecting you, shaping you, building you until the right moment comes when everything falls into place better than you ever dreamed? Sometimes in life, we ask and we wait, and the waiting hurts. We cry in sujud, we make dua night after night, we hold on to hope while everything seems to be slipping away. And deep down we wonder, why is Allah not answering me? But what we often don't realize is that delays from Allah are not denials. They are divine preparation. They are Allah shaping you, protecting you, and creating the perfect time, place, and circumstances for your dua to be answered in a way that brings you closer to Him, not further away. Because He knows what you don't. He sees what you can't. He hears the conversations you're not part of, knows the future you can't imagine, understands the hidden dangers, and out of His mercy, He sometimes says, not yet, I'm preparing something better. And when that moment comes, you will look back and realize the delay was a gift, the waiting was a blessing, and the plan was far greater than anything you were praying for. Life is full of moments where we want things to happen right now. We live in a world of instant results, instant food, instant messages, instant everything. But Allah's plan doesn't work on our timeline. It works on His wisdom. The delay you face isn't because He has forgotten you. It's because He loves you too much to give you something at the wrong time or in the wrong way. Think of the story of Yusuf, sold as a slave, thrown into prison, separated from his family for years. If you saw his life halfway through, you'd think everything was going wrong. But when Allah's plan unfolded, every delay led him straight to becoming a king, reuniting with his family, and achieving more than he could ever dream of. Delays are often where Allah shapes your character, builds your patience, cleanses your heart, strengthens your faith, and prepares you for blessings you're not ready for yet. Sometimes what you want isn't denied, simply delayed because Allah wants to give it to you when it will be the most beautiful, the most beneficial, the most perfect for your dunya and akhirah. The waiting period is never wasted. It's a classroom where your soul learns tawakkul, where your heart learns sabr, where your tongue learns dua, and where your faith learns to trust Allah's plan more than your own timeline. Because when Allah finally gives, He gives in ways that make you forget the pain of waiting, in ways that make you fall into sujud in tears, realizing He was never late. He was always right on time. Sometimes in life, you ask for something, and you ask with your whole heart. You cry in the last third of the night. You raise your hands after every salah. You whisper dua as you fall asleep. You pray istikhara. You give charity. You beg Allah in every way you know how. And yet, days pass, weeks pass, months pass, maybe even years, and nothing seems to change. That dream job you wanted never calls you back. That relationship you prayed for falls apart before it begins. That illness doesn't go away. That financial burden doesn't lift. That goal you've been working toward feels like it keeps slipping through your fingers, and deep inside a whisper starts forming in your heart. Maybe Allah isn't listening. Maybe this will never happen. Maybe the door is closed for me forever. But my brothers and sisters, this is where we must stop and remind ourselves of a truth that can completely transform how we see life. A delay from Allah is never a denial. It is never Allah ignoring you, never Allah punishing you without reason, never Allah forgetting you. No, when Allah delays something, it is always because His knowledge sees something your eyes can't. His wisdom knows something your mind doesn't. His mercy is protecting you in ways your heart can't even imagine right now. Think about it. If Allah gave you everything you asked for, exactly when you asked for it, with no delay, would you ever learn sabr? Would you ever learn tawakkul? Would you ever fall on your face in sujud, crying not just for the blessing, but for the one who gives the blessing? Would you ever taste the sweetness of waiting for Allah's plan to unfold? You see, we often think delays are about the blessing, as if the job, the marriage, the money, the success is the main point. But most of the time, the delay isn't even about the blessing. It's about you. It's about the version of you that Allah is shaping through this waiting period. Because there's a version of you right now, and there's a version of you that Allah wants to bring out. A version that is stronger, wiser, more humble, more grateful, more connected to Him and the waiting period. That's where this transformation happens. That's where your heart softens, your ego shatters, your tongue learns dua like never before, your heart learns patience like never before, your soul learns humility like never before. Think about the butterfly. Before it spreads its wings, it's a caterpillar stuck inside a cocoon, in darkness, waiting. If you saw it in the cocoon, you might think it's trapped. You might even want to break the cocoon open to help it. But if you do that, the butterfly will die. Because the struggle inside the cocoon is what gives its wings strength. Without the waiting, without the struggle, it will never be able to fly. In the same way, Allah sometimes keeps you in a cocoon of waiting, because He knows your wings are not ready yet. He knows you need the struggle to build your strength. He knows the waiting is shaping you in ways comfort never could. And then one day, when the time is right, He opens the door and you realize the delay was never a punishment. It was preparation. Look at the story of Musa. He fled Egypt as a young man, lost everything overnight, lived as a stranger in a foreign land for years, not knowing what his future held. If you looked at his life during that waiting period, you might have thought, he's been forgotten. His life is over. But in reality, every single moment of that delay was preparing him, preparing his heart, his courage, his leadership, until the day came when Allah called him to the mountain, spoke to him directly, and made him a prophet who would stand before Pharaoh himself. The delay was never a denial. It was preparation for greatness. And maybe that's what's happening in your life right now. Maybe the job you didn't get was protecting you from a toxic environment. Maybe the relationship that ended was saving you from years of heartbreak. Maybe the financial struggle is keeping your heart soft, humble, close to Allah, preventing you from arrogance. Maybe the thing you want so desperately would have destroyed you if you got it too soon. And one day when the plan finally unfolds, you will look back and thank Allah for every unanswered dua, for every delay, for every closed door. Because you will see what He saw all along, that the delay was full of mercy, full of wisdom, full of love. That the delay taught you to rely on Allah, not the blessing. That the delay turned your late night tears into a shield of dua around your future. That the delay made you fall in love with the giver more than the gift. And isn't that the whole point of life? To know Allah, to trust Him, to love Him, to walk toward Him no matter what. That's why a delay is never a denial. It is Allah saying, I hear you, I see you, I love you. But what I have for you is better than what you're asking for, and you'll understand when the time is right. And when that time comes, you will realize He was never late. He was always preparing you for something greater than you asked for. When you think about the delays in your life, the prayers that feel unanswered, the doors that stay closed no matter how hard you knock, the opportunities that slip away just when you thought they were yours, I want you to pause for a moment and remember the story of Yusuf. His entire life is one of the most powerful reminders that delays are never denials, that what looks like pain might actually be the beginning of the most beautiful plan. Imagine a young boy, innocent and pure, who one day tells his father about a dream so magnificent, so full of hope and promise, where he sees the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to him. A dream that hinted at a future beyond his imagination. And yet, what was the first thing that happened after this dream? Did he wake up the next day and see the dream fulfilled? Did his life immediately take him toward greatness? No. The very next chapter of his life was betrayal by his own brothers, the people who should have protected him the most. They threw him into a well, left him in darkness, and walked away. Can you imagine what Yusuf must have felt in that moment? A child, alone, scared, shivering in a dark well, wondering why the people who claimed to love him left him to die. If you saw his life at that point, you might have thought, this boy's story is over. His dream will never come true. His life is ruined. But Allah was watching. The delay had begun, but it was never a denial. It was the first step of a divine plan unfolding slowly, piece by piece. From the well, he was taken by a caravan, sold as a slave in a foreign land. Again, imagine the pain going from being a beloved son in his father's house to being a servant in a stranger's home. Years passed. Did the dream come true yet? No. In fact, things got worse. He was wrongfully accused, thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. Alone again, forgotten again, delayed again. If you looked at his life at that point, you'd think nothing made sense. Where is the dream now? Where is the greatness now? Why so many delays? Why so much suffering? But this is where we learn the secret of Allah's timing. Every single delay in Yusuf's life was a building block. The world taught him resilience. Slavery taught him responsibility. Prison taught him patience, wisdom, leadership. Every closed door was shaping him into the man he needed to become before the dream could be fulfilled. Because sometimes you're not ready for the blessing you want. Sometimes the blessing itself isn't ready for you. Allah uses delays to prepare both you and the circumstances around you so that when the moment comes, everything aligns perfectly. Years later, Yusuf interprets the king's dream, is released from prison, and rises to a position of power and honor in Egypt. And then one day, the moment comes, his brothers stand before him, not knowing who he is, and the dream finally comes true. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bow before him, just as he saw as a child. Every delay, every heartbreak, every betrayal suddenly makes sense. If even one moment had happened differently, if he hadn't been thrown in the well, if he hadn't been sold as a slave, if he hadn't been imprisoned, he would never have been in the position to save an entire nation from famine, to reunite with his family, to fulfill his dream in the most perfect way. That's the power of Allah's timing. That's why delays are not denials. They are Allah saying, trust me. I'm writing a story for you that is bigger than you can see right now. And my dear brothers and sisters, maybe your life right now feels like Yusuf's did when he was in the well, or when he was in prison, dark, lonely, hopeless. Maybe you're wondering why things keep going wrong, why doors keep closing, why nothing is working out. But maybe, just like Yusuf, Allah is preparing you for a chapter you can't see yet. Maybe the delays are shaping you, positioning you, building you, so that when the moment comes, you're not just ready for the blessing, you're ready to handle it with wisdom, gratitude, and faith. Because here's the truth. When the story finally unfolded for Yusuf, it was better than he ever imagined. Not only did he rise to power, but his family was reunited, his honor restored, his heart healed. And that's exactly what Allah does for his servants who trust him through the delays. He doesn't just give you what you ask for, he gives you more. He gives you healing where there was pain, honor where there was humiliation, strength where there was weakness, faith where there was doubt. So the next time you feel like your life is full of delays, remember Yusuf. Remember that sometimes the most beautiful stories take time to unfold. That sometimes the darkest chapters are the ones that lead to the brightest endings. That sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection towards something far greater than you can imagine. The delays in your life are not random. They are not meaningless. They are not signs that Allah has forgotten you. They are signs that Allah loves you enough to prepare you before He blesses you, to strengthen you before He elevates you, to write a story for you finally see it will make you fall into sujud, in tears, thanking Him for every closed door, every unanswered dua. Every delay that turned out to be a blessing in disguise. When Allah delays something in your life, it's easy to think the delay is just about the blessing itself. The job, the marriage, the success, the dream you've been praying for. But the reality is deeper than that. Because sometimes the delay isn't even about the blessing. It's about you. It's about what the waiting does inside your heart. It's about how the silence between your dua and the answer slowly reshapes you, teaches you, transforms you. You see, we all love quick results. We live in a world where everything is instant. Instant food, instant replies, instant deliveries, instant entertainment. We press a button and things happen. We want life, and even Allah, to work the same way. I made dua last night. Why hasn't my life changed today? But the heart doesn't grow in comfort. The soul doesn't deepen in ease. Faith doesn't flourish when every prayer is answered instantly. No, faith grows in the space between your asking and Allah's giving. Faith grows in the nights you cry and get up the next day, still believing. Faith grows in the days when nothing makes sense, but you choose to trust Allah's plan anyway. Faith grows in the silence, in the waiting, in the uncertainty. Because that's when you're forced to rely on Allah, not on your circumstances. That's when you learn to worship Him for who He is, not just for what He gives. Think about Ibrahim standing in the barren desert with his wife and child. No food, no water, no one around, nothing but sand and sky. Can you imagine the waiting he must have felt? The prayers he must have made? The silence all around him. And yet that waiting became the birthplace of Zamzam, the foundation of Makkah, the site of Hajj. The delay built his faith in ways instant answers never could. Because when you're waiting, you learn sabr, not the kind you talk about in theory, but the kind that burns in your chest when you have nowhere to turn but Allah. You learn tawakkul, the kind where you close your eyes, step forward, and trust that Allah's plan will catch you even when you can't see the ground beneath your feet. You learn shakr, gratitude for blessings you used to take for granted, like the days when life was simple, when your heart was light, when things seemed easy. You learn to appreciate small wins, small answers, because your waiting teaches you nothing is truly small when it comes from Allah. Delays take you from a transactional relationship with Allah, where you only turn to Him to get things, to a transformational relationship where you turn to Him because you realize He is the only one worth turning to. Because when Allah delays, you pray more. You make dua in ways you never did before. Your sajda becomes longer, your tears become purer, your heart becomes softer. Before the delay, maybe your salah was rushed. Maybe your duas were half-hearted. Maybe you thought about Allah only when life got tough. But then the delay came and suddenly you found yourself waking up for tahajjud, whispering to Allah in the last third of the night, carrying His name on your tongue through the day. You start to realize the waiting itself is a blessing because it brought you closer to Him. And what is the point of any blessing if it doesn't bring you closer to the one who gives it? Sometimes Allah delays because He wants you to fall in love with the process of turning to Him, not just with the outcome you're asking for. He wants you to taste the sweetness of a long dua, the peace of a heartfelt sajda, the beauty of saying, Ya Allah, I trust you even when I don't understand. Because that's where faith lives, not in the answers, but in the waiting. Think about it. If every dua you made was answered instantly, would you ever learn to surrender? Would you ever learn to let go of control? Would you ever experience the beauty of saying, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakile, Allah is enough for me, and truly meaning it? Or would you start seeing Allah like a vending machine, expecting results every time you put in a prayer? The delay saves you from that shallowness. It turns your worship from a transaction into a relationship. It teaches you that Allah is not just the giver of gifts. He is the turner of hearts, the healer of wounds, the listener of secrets, the one who stays when everyone else leaves. And here's the thing, when your faith grows in the waiting even before the blessing arrives, you've already won. Because the blessing was never the end goal. Jannah is. The blessing was never the destination. Closeness to Allah is. The delay teaches you to worship Allah with or without the thing you're asking for. It teaches you to say, like the people of true faith, even if Allah doesn't give me what I want, I will still worship Him because He is my Lord, not because He is my wish granter. That kind of faith doesn't break when life breaks. That kind of faith doesn't vanish when duas feel unanswered. That kind of faith keeps you standing when everything around you falls apart. And ironically, when your faith grows in the delay, you become ready for the blessing in ways you weren't before. Because now you won't worship the gift, you'll worship the giver. Now the blessing won't pull you away from Allah, it will bring you closer. Because you learned in the waiting that Allah was enough even without it. That's why delays build your faith. Not because Allah wants to hurt you, but because He loves you too much to let you stay shallow, weak, dependent on dunya, instead of dependent on Him. So the next time your dua feels unanswered, the next time the waiting feels endless, the next time you wonder why nothing is changing, remember, the delay might be building something inside you that's far more valuable than the thing you're asking for. It might be building faith that can withstand the storms of life, faith that doesn't crumble with hardship, faith that will carry you to Jannah. And what could be a greater blessing than that? Sometimes in life, you ask Allah for something and you want it now. You feel like you're ready, like your whole life depends on it, like this one thing will finally bring you happiness, stability, and peace. You cry in dua, you pray tahajjud, you give charity, you do everything you can think of to bring it closer, but it just doesn't happen. The door stays closed, the delay keeps stretching on. And somewhere inside, a whisper starts to say, "Oh, why isn't Allah answering me? Why is He keeping this from me?" But what we don't often realize is this: sometimes Allah delays because you're not ready yet. Not because He wants to punish you, not because He wants to hurt you, but because He loves you too much to give you something before you're prepared to handle it. Because here's the truth: blessings come with weight. Every blessing you ask for, whether it's a job, a spouse, wealth, success, or a dream, carries responsibilities, tests, and challenges along with it. And if Allah gives it to you before you're spiritually, emotionally, and mentally ready, the thing you thought would bring you peace could end up breaking you instead. Think about it. We often ask for things imagining only the sweetness, but we rarely think about the tests that come packaged with them. You ask for wealth, but wealth comes with accountability. On the day of judgment, you'll be asked how you earned it, how you spent it, whether it made you arrogant or generous. You ask for marriage comes with compromise, patience, and selflessness. It will test your character, your ego, your faith. You ask for success, but success brings envy, pressure, sleepless nights, responsibilities that can crush you if you're not strong inside. So sometimes Allah delays because He knows you need time to grow into the kind of person who can carry the blessing without losing your deen, your peace, your purpose. Look at the story of Musa. As a baby, he was saved from Pharaoh's soldiers and raised in the palace itself. He had everything. But before he could lead Bani Israel, before he could stand before Pharaoh and deliver Allah's message, before he could part the Red Sea with his staff, Allah took him through years of exile in Madian. Years of being unknown, years of working as a shepherd, years of solitude. Why? Because leadership requires patience. It requires humility. It requires the kind of strength that only comes from carrying burdens when no one sees you, from living through delays that break your ego but build your character. By the time Musa stood before Pharaoh, he wasn't just a man with a mission. He was a man shaped by waiting, by trials, by years of preparation. The Musa who left Egypt as a young man wasn't ready for prophecy, but the Musa who returned after years in Madian was. And the same is true for you. The delay you hate right now might be the very thing preparing you for the blessing you've been praying for. Maybe you want marriage, but Allah knows your heart still needs to heal. Your character still needs to grow. Your habits still need to change so that when you meet your spouse, you bring peace into the marriage, not chaos. Maybe you want wealth, but Allah knows if He gave it to you now, it might make you arrogant, distract you from salah, pull you toward haram, so He delays until your iman is strong enough to handle abundance with gratitude, not pride. Maybe you want success, but Allah knows the spotlight could destroy your sincerity, so He keeps you in the shadows until your heart learns to work for His pleasure, not for people's applause. The waiting period becomes a classroom where Allah teaches you lessons success can't teach. It's where you learn discipline, humility, gratitude, tawakkul. It's where you break free from sins, addictions, bad habits that would have poisoned your blessing if you carried them into it. Because imagine if Allah gave you everything you wanted instantly. Would you grow? Would you change? Would you leave behind the sins you're struggling with now? Or would you carry them straight into the life you're asking for, turning blessings into burdens? Sometimes Allah delays because He wants to protect your blessing from you. He wants you to arrive at it purified, matured, grounded in faith, so that instead of pulling you away from Him, it pulls you closer. That's why you'll notice in the Quran, before every great blessing, there's always a period of waiting, of tests, of delays. Before Yusuf became a king, he was thrown into a well, sold as a slave, imprisoned for years. Before Musa became a prophet, he lived in exile, far from home. Before the Prophet Muhammad received revelation, he spent years in the cave of Hira, reflecting, preparing, purifying his heart for the weight of prophethood. None of them were given greatness instantly, because greatness without preparation can destroy you. Blessings without spiritual strength can break you. But when you've been through delays, when you've cried in the night, when you've been humbled by waiting, when you've built your connection with Allah in the darkness where no one sees you, then when the blessing finally comes, it doesn't own you. It doesn't pull you away from Allah. It doesn't make you arrogant or ungrateful. Instead, it makes you fall in sujud in tears, because you know what it took to get there. You know who gave it to you. You know it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was Allah's perfect plan, arriving at the perfect time, after shaping you into the person who could handle it with faith and gratitude. So the next time life delays what you're praying for, don't just ask, when will I get it? Ask, who do I need to become, so that when it comes, I don't lose my deen, my peace, my purpose? Because maybe right now, you're not ready yet. And that's not a punishment. That's mercy. That's love. That's Allah saying, I want this blessing to raise you, not ruin you. So I'm giving you time to grow before I give it to you. And when you finally get it, you'll realize the delay was never a rejection. It was protection. It was preparation. It was Allah making sure the blessing came with barakah, with peace, with faith, not with regret. One of the most beautiful and humbling truths in life is this. Sometimes when Allah delays what you're asking for, it's because what you're asking for is too small compared to what He wants to give you. Look at our lives through the tiny window of the present moment. What we feel, what we see, what we think will make us happy right now. So we make dua for things we believe will change everything. A job, a relationship, a chance, a dream we hold so tightly, it feels like our whole life depends on it. And when it doesn't happen, when the door stays closed, when the delay stretches on longer than we imagined, we feel like our world is falling apart. But what we don't realize is that our view is so limited, so narrow, so small compared to Allah's view. See one step ahead. Allah sees the entire journey. We see one chapter. Allah sees the whole book. We ask for comfort right now. Allah wants to give us success in both dunya and akhirah. We ask for small blessings. Allah wants to give us legacies. We ask for a drop. Allah wants to give us oceans. And sometimes the delay is Allah's way of saying, what you're asking for is beneath what I've written for you. Wait, I have something greater in store. Think about the story of Yusuf again. As a boy, maybe all he wanted was to be safe at home with his father, to escape his brother's jealousy, to live a simple life. But Allah delayed that. Allah delayed that. Allowed him to be thrown into a well, sold as a slave, imprisoned for years. Why? Because what Yusuf might have wanted for himself was far smaller than what Allah had planned for him. He didn't just become safe. He became a king. He didn't just survive. He saved nations from famine. He didn't just reunite with his family. He saw them bow before him in honor, fulfilling a dream beyond his imagination. Every delay was because Allah was preparing something far bigger than the small comforts Yusuf might have prayed for as a child. And this is the reality for so many of us. We ask for what we think will make our lives better, but Allah withholds it because He knows it would limit us, because He knows our potential is greater, because He knows our story is still unfolding in ways we can't yet imagine. Maybe you wanted a job, but Allah delayed it because He planned a career for you that would impact thousands of lives. Maybe you wanted to marry someone, but Allah ended it because He wrote someone for you who would be better for your dunya and your akhirah, someone who would bring you closer to Him, not pull you away. And maybe you wanted small success, but Allah delayed it because He planned to open doors for you that would leave you speechless. doors you never even thought to knock on. We often ask Allah for what is easy, what is comfortable, what is immediate. But Allah loves us too much to limit us to our own small dreams. He gives according to His knowledge, not our impatience. He gives according to His wisdom, not our wish list. Because here's the thing, sometimes what you think will make you happy will actually limit your growth, your impact, your faith. Sometimes what you're crying for at night is nothing compared to what Allah has written for you. But you can't see it yet because your eyes are on the door that hasn't opened while Allah is building a palace you haven't even imagined. This is why when Allah delays, He's not punishing you. He is upgrading you. He's preparing to give you something bigger, better, fuller than what you thought to ask for. The Prophet Muhammad once said that Allah says, "I am as my servant thinks of me." If you think Allah is only going to give you the bare minimum, you will limit your expectations, your dua, your hope. But if you believe Allah is Kareem, the most generous, if you believe He gives beyond measure, beyond logic, beyond imagination, then you will understand that every delay is actually Him gathering something greater for you. Sometimes He delays because what you're asking for would have made you settle too soon, made you stop growing, made you think small when He wrote greatness for you. Think about Maryam. When she was alone, in pain, giving birth under a palm tree, she probably just wanted the pain to end, just wanted the suffering to stop. But Allah delayed her relief until Isa was born, until she saw with her own eyes the miracle of a child who would speak as a baby, defend her honor, grow into a prophet. Her small wish for the pain to end was replaced by Allah's greater plan, for her to become the mother of one of the greatest prophets in history. That's what happens when Allah delays. He's not taking away your dreams. He's replacing them with better ones. He's not ignoring your dua. He's upgrading it beyond what you had the courage to ask for. And the truth is, most of us only realize this in hindsight. We look back years later and say, Alhamdulillah, that job didn't work out. Alhamdulillah, I didn't marry that person. Alhamdulillah, that plan failed. Because what Allah gave me instead was so much better than what I thought I wanted. So the next time Allah delays, remember this. Maybe what you're asking for is too small. Maybe Allah loves you too much to give you a drop when He's preparing an ocean. Maybe the story He's writing for you will make you fall into sujood in tears one day, thanking Him for not giving you what you begged for, because He replaced it with something beyond your imagination, beyond your plans, beyond your prayers. That's why the delay hurts now, but will make sense later. That's why what feels like silence is actually mercy speaking in ways you can't hear yet. That's why the door staying closed might be the best thing that ever happened to you, because Allah isn't just giving you what you asked for. He's giving you what you would have asked for if you could see what He sees. And when that greater plan unfolds, you will realize the delay was never a rejection. It was Allah saying, I wrote something bigger for you than you wrote for yourself. Trust me. Sometimes in life, you want something so badly that you can't imagine living without it. A dream job, a person you love, chance you've been waiting for. And when it doesn't happen, when the doors stay closed, when the delay stretches on for months or even years, your heart feels shattered. And you wonder if Allah is ignoring your prayers. But what if that delay wasn't a punishment? What if it was a shield? What if Allah was protecting you in ways you couldn't see, from dangers you didn't even know existed? We human beings live in the present. We can't see the future. We don't know what's waiting for us tomorrow, next month, or 5 years from now. But Allah knows. He knows the unseen, the future, the consequences of every choice, the ripple effects of every decision. He knows what looks good now might harm you later. What you think is a blessing might break you. What you see as a dream come true might lead to regret, heartbreak, or even loss of faith. And because Allah is Al-Hakim, the most wise, He sometimes delays what you want to protect you from what you cannot see. It's like a child crying for a sharp knife because it's shiny, because it looks fun, but the parent refuses. Not because they hate the child, but because they love them too much to give them something that will harm them. In the same way, when Allah keeps you waiting, when He says, not yet, When he blocks that path, it might be because he sees the sharp edges you cannot. Maybe that job you wanted would have consumed your time, taken you away from your family, pulled you into haram, or destroyed your mental health. Maybe that person you wanted to marry so badly would have broken your heart, ruined your peace, or even shaken your faith. Maybe that opportunity you were begging for would have taken you far from Allah, far from your purpose, far from the things that actually matter. But you couldn't see that. All you saw was the glitter. And so you cried when it slipped away, not realizing that Allah was saving you from harm. Think about the story of Khidr and Musa in the Quran. When Khidr damaged the boat of the poor fishermen, it looked cruel, unfair, unnecessary. But later we learned there was a tyrant king waiting ahead who was seizing every good boat by force. By damaging it slightly, Khidr protected it from being taken completely. The delay, the damage, the apparent setback, it was all mercy in disguise. And that's how Allah works in our lives. Sometimes the delay feels like your boat has been damaged, like your plans have been ruined, like your life has been set back. Maybe Allah is protecting you from a storm ahead you can't see yet. Maybe He's saving you from a heartbreak, from a loss, from a danger, from a lifetime of regret. Of regret! And sometimes it's even deeper than that. Maybe Allah is protecting your faith itself. Because the worst thing that can happen to a believer is not losing a job, a person, or an opportunity. It's losing the connection with Allah. It's the heart hardening. It's falling into sin. It's chasing the dunya so hard you forget the akhirah, and maybe the thing you wanted so badly would have done exactly that. Maybe if Allah gave it to you, would have become arrogant, distant, distracted, too comfortable to make dua, too busy to pray, too attached to the dunya to think about Jannah. So Allah delays, Allah withholds. Allah says, oh, not yet, not because He wants to see you suffer, but because He loves you enough to protect you from paths that lead away from Him. Sometimes what breaks your heart actually saves your soul. Sometimes what you call disappointment, Allah calls protection. And the truth is, most of us only realize this later in life. We look back at the things we cried for, the people we lost, the doors that closed, and we say, Alhamdulillah, that didn't happen. Because if it did, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have grown, I wouldn't have learned, I wouldn't have found something better. It's like when you miss a flight and you're angry, only to find out later that plane had an emergency. At the moment, it feels like the worst thing. Later, you see, it was the best thing. The delay was protection. The Prophet Muhammad told us that sometimes Allah protects us from harm even when we don't see it. Sometimes a calamity is lifted, a danger is blocked, a test is removed before it even reaches us, and we don't even know. We just see the delay. We just see the closed door. But Allah sees the storm that never touched you, because He protected you through that very delay you complained about. So the next time you find yourself waiting, the next time you're tempted to think Allah has forgotten you, remember this. Maybe He's saving you from heartbreak, from danger, from a test you wouldn't have passed. Maybe He's keeping you close to Him by keeping something away from you. Maybe the very thing you think you want is the very thing that would have destroyed your peace, your life, or your faith. And one day when the plan unfolds, when the storm passes, when the right door finally opens, you will look back and say, Ya Allah, thank you for protecting me even when I didn't understand. Thank you for the delays that saved me from what I couldn't see. Thank you for loving me enough to say no when I begged for a yes. Because sometimes the delay is not just preparation. Sometimes the delay is protection. A shield between you and harm you didn't even know existed. A barrier between you and a path that would have led you away from Allah. A mercy in disguise that you only recognize when the full story finally unfolds. One of the most profound realities of life that we often forget in the middle of our struggles is that the waiting period itself is a test. A test not of your ability to work harder, not of your ability to cry longer, but of your faith, your patience, and your trust in Allah when nothing seems to be moving. You see, when you make dua for something, when you beg Allah for relief, for guidance, for a breakthrough, what happens next is never random. Allah hears every whisper of your heart, every tear that falls in the middle of the night, every silent prayer that no one knows about. And the moment you raise your hands, the test begins. Will you keep trusting Him when the answer doesn't come right away? Will you stay consistent in your prayers when the days turn into months, when the months turn into years, when the silence feels heavy, when the delay hurts more than words can explain? Because here's the truth. It's easy to believe in Allah when everything is going right, when the doors open quickly, when the blessings come pouring in without much waiting. But the real test of faith begins in the silence, in the waiting room of life, where nothing seems to be happening, where the plan is unfolding slowly, where your heart is tempted by doubt, by despair, by the whispers of shaitan telling you. And maybe Allah isn't listening. Maybe He doesn't care. Maybe this is all pointless. That's where the test lies, in whether you give in to those whispers or fight them with faith. The waiting period is not empty time. It is the battlefield of your iman. It is where your heart is trained to surrender, where your soul learns sabr, where your tongue learns dhikr, where your heart learns tawakkul, the kind of trust in Allah that says, even if I don't see the way, even if I don't feel the progress, I know Allah is with me, and His plan is always better than mine. Think about Ibrahim when he was commanded to leave his wife and infant son in the middle of a desert with no water, no food, no shelter. Imagine the waiting that followed, the thirst, the hunger, the crying of a baby. That wasn't just about water coming from Zamzam later. It was about the faith in the waiting period before the water came. It was about trusting Allah when there was nothing in sight but sand and silence. The mother of Ismail ran between Safa and Marwa 7 times, and each time she saw nothing. Not once, not twice, but 7 times she was tested with seeing no results, no relief, no sign of change, until finally Allah's plan unfolded and water gushed forth from the ground. That's the reality of life. Allah could have sent the water the first time she ran. He could have made it easy instantly. But the waiting period was the test. Because Allah doesn't just want to give you the blessing, He wants to purify your heart, strengthen your faith, and elevate your rank through the waiting. It is in the waiting period that you discover who you truly are when things don't go your way. Do you keep praying when the doors stay closed? Do you stay patient when the delay stretches on? Do you keep trusting when you see no signs of progress? Because anyone can have faith in moments of ease, it's only in moments of waiting that real faith is proven. And maybe that's why Allah delays sometimes, to show you your own heart, to expose whether your worship was only for the blessings or for the one who gives the blessings, to test whether your dua was just about the gift or about staying connected to the giver himself. Because the truth is, many people pray hard when they want something, and the moment they get it, they forget Allah. But the ones who pass the waiting test are the ones who stay close to Him whether the blessing comes or not. The ones whose worship doesn't depend on answered prayers. The ones who understand that the delay is not Allah abandoning them, but Allah refining them. Look at Yaqub, the father of Yusuf, who waited years without losing hope. He lost his son, his heart ached every single day. But he said, I only complain of my suffering and grief to Allah, and I know from Allah that which you do not know. He cried, he grieved, but he never gave up hope in Allah's mercy. That's what it means to pass the waiting test. To cry but not to despair. To hurt but not to lose faith. To wait but not to stop believing in the goodness of Allah's plan. And when you pass that test, when you stay patient, when you keep your faith alive despite the silence, Allah promises that the reward will be worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of longing. Because the waiting period is not punishment, it is purification. It is Allah removing arrogance, ego, attachment to dunya, love for quick results, and replacing them with humility, sincerity, and reliance on Him alone. It is Allah turning your dua from words on your tongue into an act of the heart that beats with trust, into a state of the soul that lives with certainty. So the next time you are waiting, remember, you are not stuck. You are being tested, refined, and elevated. The waiting period is not wasted time. It is sacred time where your heart is writing its story of faith, where your soul is proving its loyalty to Allah even when the blessings are delayed. And one day, when the plan finally unfolds, when the prayer is answered, when the waiting ends, you will realize that the delay was never just about the blessing. It was about who you became while you waited, about the faith that was built in the silence, about the closeness to Allah that grew in the dark before the light came. Because in the end, the waiting period is always a test, and if you pass it, the reward is far greater than the blessing you are asking for in the first place. There will come a moment in your life, after all the waiting, after all the tears, after all the nights of sujud, where you poured your heart out to Allah, when the plan will finally unfold. And it will be so beautiful that you will fall into prostration in gratitude, realizing that every delay, every closed door, every moment of silence from the heavens was leading to this. Because when Allah writes the moment for your blessing to arrive, nothing can stop it. No person, no circumstance, no barrier can stand in the way of what Allah has written for you. And when that moment comes, it will come with such ease, such barakah, such perfection, that you will forget the pain of waiting, the weight of the struggle, the ache in your chest from all the nights you wondered why it was taking so long. Because Allah's timing is perfect. He never gives too early when you're not ready, and He never gives too late when the blessing would lose its sweetness. He gives at the exact moment when your heart is prepared to receive it with humility, gratitude, and faith, not arrogance or entitlement. La. And when that moment comes, it will be so perfectly timed that you will realize why the delay was necessary. You will understand why the doors stayed closed, why the people you thought you needed walked away, why the plans you thought were so perfect fell apart. Because all along, Allah was protecting you, teaching you, elevating you, and writing a story far more beautiful than the one you were trying to write for yourself. Think about Yusuf again. Years of separation from his father, years of being wronged, years of waiting in a prison cell. And then in one moment, Allah's plan unfolded. He went from the darkness of a prison to the throne of a king, from being forgotten to being honored, from being a victim of injustice to becoming the savior of nations. And when it happened so beautifully, so completely, so perfectly that every wound healed, every tear made sense, every hardship turned into gratitude. That's what happens when Allah's timing finally arrives. It doesn't come piece by piece. It comes in full, wrapping up all the pain in a way that transforms it into purpose, into lessons, into blessings you couldn't have imagined before. The Prophet Muhammad told us, "Know that what has passed you by was never going to befall you, and what has befallen you was never going to pass you by." That means the moment Allah writes your blessing, it will reach you no matter how impossible it seems right now. You might be broke today, and the next moment Allah opens doors of provision you never even knocked on. You might be lonely today, and the next moment Allah brings someone into your life who changes everything in the best way. You might be crying in your sujud today, and the next moment Allah answers your dua in a way that leaves you speechless, wondering how the pieces came together so perfectly, when for so long they felt so shattered. That's the beauty of Allah's timing. It arrives in ways that remind you He was always in control, always listening, always planning, always caring, even when you couldn't see it. And when it happens, it humbles you. Because you realize that if Allah had given you what you wanted when you wanted it, you wouldn't have been ready. You might not have appreciated it. You might not have even kept it. But after the delay, after the waiting built your faith, after the test softened your heart, after the silence purified your intentions, you receive the blessing differently. You receive it with gratitude instead of entitlement, with humility instead of arrogance, with closeness to Allah instead of distance from Him. And here's the thing, when Allah finally gives, He gives in ways that exceed your imagination. He doesn't just answer your dua, He beautifies the timing, the circumstances, the outcome, so that the blessing itself carries barakah that lasts far beyond the moment you receive it. That's why people who wait patiently often end up saying, "I wouldn't trade the waiting for anything." Because the waiting shapes you, but the moment of receiving transforms you. It makes you fall in love with Allah's wisdom, with His mercy, with His perfect plan. And sometimes when the blessing comes, you realize it's not even the blessing itself that makes you cry. It's the realization that Allah was with you the whole time, hearing every prayer, seeing every tear, writing every moment with precision, even when you felt alone. So if you are in the waiting right now, if you are in the middle of unanswered du'as, hold on to this truth. When the time comes, it will be beautiful. Not just beautiful because you finally got what you wanted, but beautiful because it will come with peace in your heart, with clarity in your mind, with gratitude on your tongue, with faith in your soul. It will be beautiful because it will come at the right time, in the right way, with the right people, for the right reasons. And you will know deep in your heart that only Allah could have written it so perfectly. And on that day, you will thank Him for every delay, for every moment of waiting, for every unanswered prayer, because you will see that the plan was never delayed. It was always on time. So as you sit with your unanswered du'as, your waiting seasons, your delays that sometimes feel unbearable, remember this: Allah is not ignoring you. He is not punishing you. He is not withholding out of cruelty. Every delay is packed with wisdom you cannot see yet. Some delays come because what you want is too small compared to what He has written for you. Some delays come because He is protecting you from dangers you don't even know exist. Some delays come because your heart needs to be shaped, your faith needs to be strengthened, your character needs to be purified before the blessing arrives. And some delays come because Allah is preparing a moment so perfect, so full of barakah, so aligned with your dars and your destiny, that when it finally unfolds, you will cry in gratitude and understand why you had to wait. One day, you will see it. One day, you will thank Him for the prayers He didn't answer when you wanted, for the doors He didn't open too soon, for the delays that felt like silence but were actually mercy in disguise. And when that moment comes, when you stand in the middle of the blessing Allah wrote for you at the perfect time, you will realize He was never late. He was always on time.